Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and as many longtime viewers of my channel know, I hold very strong beliefs both morally and ethically when it comes to the subject of video game critique, and I have never been one to take the integrity of video games critique lightly, especially when events transpire that have the potential to affect a fairly large number of gamers. In particularly when corporations like Ubisoft engage in pseudo-quote whining and dining of content creators in order to partner with them for not only positive coverage, but of positive reviews for a video game, in this case, Star Wars Outlaws. When I woke up this morning, I was greeted by a Discord message from a viewer that directed me to the media site That Park Place and an article posted on August 3rd by John Trent titled, "German YouTube channel removes their Star Wars Outlaws preview video after admitting third-party agency had to approve it." And to break things down, the German YouTuber in question is Piet Smiet, a games YouTuber with roughly 2.5 million subscribers. Piet Smiet appears to not really be a games critic per se, as most of the content appears to be your rather run-of-the-mill quote-unquote influencer content along with reaction content, which as a side note, I still maintain that reaction content is the pond scum of the YouTube gaming world, not risen to the level of requiring direct derision nor falling far enough to be considered tuberculotic sputum either. But from the article I referenced, we garnered that Piet Smiet, along with numerous other content creators and influencers, God, I hate that term, were flown out to California on Ubisoft's dime to attend a preview event for Star Wars Outlaws at Disney Star Wars. At the event, creators and influencers each got 4 hours of gameplay with Star Wars Outlaws, and Piet Smiet then created a now no longer available 1 hour long video from that. According to some comments on Piet Smiet's community page, the video was not at all met positively by Piet Smiet's viewers, seeing the video as being highly promotional, even encouraging viewers to pre-order the game right at the beginning of the video, which is stated by those commenters as being directly counter to what Piet Smiet's stance on pre-ordering has been in the past, and possibly due to the negativity, the video has been removed. From a comment made by Piet Smiet, and my apologies, this is Google Translate, so take the translation with a grain of salt. For any German speakers out there, I'll make certain to show the original post on your screen as well. Feel free to let me know if there are any glaring translation errors that might change the context of what is being said here. But within that comment, Piet Smiet refers to an intermediary that asks for a great number of changes, particularly with the wording at the beginning of the video. I suspect the intermediary here was a PR firm working with and for Ubisoft to make certain the videos give a pre-approved messaging to the viewer. Now, this has the potential to be a massive problem, as if the video in question were being treated as an impressions video, aka a critique, then the integrity of that critique was not only compromised by the direct bias created by accepting the offer and attending the event put on by Ubisoft, but indisputably compromised by a third-party intermediary, or let's just say PR firm, directly requiring specific edits and changes to be made to the video content and the words being spoken by the content creator in question. Piet Smiet then released an apology on their community page, and the sentiment of one of the commenters to that apology seems to strike at the heart of the issue with Piet Smiet's video, where they said, "As much as I love your videos, you just can't do advertising. You can tell from videos like these, most recently with the Crew Motorfest and Avatar, that you suddenly like everything that was previously criticized countless times by yourself. Either you do authentic, sometimes critical advertising, or not at all. And since you need income, the latter is obviously impossible." And to that, I would say, yes, we all need money, some of us more than others. However, a content creator should not sacrifice the ethics of their own channel in order to get it. That is a losing proposition. It will get you money, sure, at least in the short term. But as a content creator, you would end up sacrificing everything that got you to where you are now. Now, speaking of money, Patreon, Ko-Fi, PayPal, those do exist, but as a creator, you need to earn that support. Don't take the easy way out by accepting unholy alliances. That is a path to the dark side. Other creators and influencers that have been reported as attending these Ubisoft events, of which there were two, one in June and another in July, were some of the following. Queen Tofu, a Let's Player and live streamer with 174,000 subscribers on YouTube, although I see no Star Wars Outlaws content on her channel, nor any real mention of Outlaws outside of her Twitter feed. Although I find it ironic that she would post that she was serving the Resistance while being at a promotional event for Ubisoft, the literal empire in this little story. There was Chewy, a TikTok and Instagram influencer who posted that he also got access to interview the game director and lead writer. And there was also Mirandalorian, a YouTube Let's Player with 119,000 subscribers on YouTube, but also with no content released yet for Outlaws? I'm curious. Maybe there was a bit of an embargo, especially considering Mirandalorian apparently ended up being brought out to attend both Ubisoft events. There was also Luis Julie, a YouTuber with a little over 77,000 subscribers who has released a 2-part video series involving Star Wars Outlaws and her 4 hours of gameplay at the Ubisoft event. And the list goes on from there. It was a decently sized event, so we could keep pulling up channels, but one that I did want to go over a little more in depth was the Star Wars HQ, a channel with over 650,000 subscribers on YouTube who attended the Ubisoft event and who produced a 15-minute critique of Star Wars Outlaws. And this video encapsulates most of what I hate regarding critiques spawning from events such as these and the creators who engage with them. Now, Star Wars HQ does state in the description, I have partnered with Ubisoft to produce this content, and it also contains the hashtag ad. Also, Star Wars HQ discloses that the gameplay came from his attending the event. So at least verbally, it alludes to this being an advertisement and not a legitimate critique. And the text for those who pay attention, and let's face it, 99.9% of the viewers won't even look at that sort of thing, and I know this to be the case. Hell, you'd be surprised at how many times a year people still ask when or if I'll create a Discord, and there's been a link to my Discord in the description of every video I've posted for literally years. But the text at least notifies people that this is not to be taken seriously. He states it's partnered, he states it's an ad. But this video is very much an impressions video, meaning it is a critique, and it is presented as half critique, half advertisement, where Star Wars HQ tried to make himself feel a little better by including one negative thing about the game, which that one negative thing happened to be the fact that every time Kay Vess climbs a ladder or gets on a speeder bike, she drops whatever secondary weapon you happen to have picked up. He then states that he hopes they patch it out. Now, we know via inference from Piet Smiet that this content is reviewed by whatever PR firm Ubisoft has hired, and so that flaw was approved messaging by the PR firm itself, so quite likely it will be patched at some point at release or shortly after, so it's a relative non-issue. The main issue here is that Star Wars HQ says this is his honest impression, which if that's genuinely what he believes, then that's all well and good. Now, I can't climb into his brain and see the truth for myself, so if he genuinely believes that, fantastic. Great. He seemingly found his dream game then. But even if it is 100% honest, it's still not actually honest. And I'll tell you why. There's a little word called bias. I've actually mentioned it in this video already. And when it comes to critique, whether it be first impressions critique or a full review, there are ethical standards that come into play. And one of, if not the biggest among those, is monetary bias. Was the critic paid for their review? If so, this creates a problem, as there are only two ways that can possibly go due to the simple fact that the critic involved is a human being. And human nature being what it is, we're all subject to similar influences. Firstly, the monetary, or rather compensatory bias, can create a positive bias for the game in question, leading the creator to be more forgiving or more promotional in nature than they otherwise might be. Secondly, the inverse can also be true. The creator can be aware of that compensatory bias and attempt to compensate to prevent a positive bias, actually leading them to be far more harsh or critical of the game in question as a result. Of course, with a PR firm pulling the strings and, at least in the case of Piet Smiet, directly requesting and requiring changes to the words being spoken, that second eventuality will be, for all intents and purposes, eliminated. Ubisoft know this sort of thing happens and want to make certain the money they spend actually provides them with value, so they keep control of the messaging. But Sid, you might say, they weren't given any money for this. And you would be absolutely correct. However, they were paid. They just weren't paid in good old-fashioned dollars or hard currency. They were paid with a trip to Disney Star Wars in California, preview access to the game in an event setting, and access to the developers. That is how they were paid. And they took it, each and every one of them, without reservation. Now, this sort of thing is nothing new. CD Projekt Red held an event at a castle for the release of The Witcher Blood and Wine, an event that Angry Joe, Jesse Cox, and countless other content creators attended. There was also the E3 event, where I can't remember the year, maybe it was 2013, old age is setting in, I suppose, where Microsoft gave every person in the audience, all creators and journalists, brand new Xboxes. So no, this is certainly nothing new. But also, what is not new is the fact that it does continue to compromise the ethics surrounding critique. It is paid promotion, even though the payment isn't in money, as I said. the payment is in both access and good times. It's whining and dining at scale. And it also means that each and every one of these creators that provide their, quote, impressions, well, their coverage of Star Wars Outlaws should at minimum be taken with a dump truck of salt. My advice? Wait for more legitimate reviews to come out that won't be burdened by the compensatory bias and a Ubisoft PR firm looking over their shoulders. I think at that point you would get a much more honest impression of what the game is really like. But what do I know? I'm just a mook with a mic. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.